Hey guys, it's Brigitte with San Diego Seed Company, and today we're doing part 2 of our 4-part video on everything you need to know to be as successful as you can at growing your own produce. Now, this is over a decade of knowledge that I am pouring out on camera to try to get you guys to not make the same mistakes I have and to just learn how to grow the most happy, resilient, strong plants that you can so you get as much food as possible from your garden. Now, before I do that, make sure you hit the cultivate button.
No, cultivate that like
Oh, they didn't even do it right.
Oh my gosh.
Now, what I meant to say was hit that like button. Sorry, Kevin. Now, what's the next thing I say? If you haven't watched part 1, make sure you do it because it's really going to set you up with a base knowledge of everything that you need to know to start off on the right foot on how to start and grow really good, healthy plants for your garden. So let's get to it. We'll see if I get a text from him. It's a Breeism if I've ever said one. So sunlight and culling and shock. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about, oh wait, sorry, seedling best practices. I forgot we broke it off here. Okay, so here we are in my greenhouse and I'm gonna talk about seed starting best practices because your healthy plants, your beautiful head of lettuce that you wanna consume in your garden starts with the very seeds that you plant in your greenhouse and how you plant them and how you care for them. Their success is dependent on that very beginning part of seed starting. Now, for those of you who don't know much about seed starting, I only have a certain amount of time to get through all this material, but please check out everything that we have online. We have many courses based on seed starting that you can check out, and our website is chocked full of information on everything you need to know for seed starting. So educate yourself and check out that material. But what I want to talk about is best practices for seed starting and how that plays a role in your long-term success. So first things first, it is so important to know that your seedlings need full sun. Now, I want to explain what that means. It means that during their appropriate season, so for example, we're in cool season now, they need the longest amount of day length that they can get during the season, so 8+ hours if they can. And why? Because sunlight is literally the thing that they need to grow. It is what they use to photosynthesize. Now, obviously, we're not getting 8+ hours of sunlight right now during this time of year, which means these are naturally going to grow very slow. That doesn't mean that they're not good plants. It just means that during this time of year, we have something called the fall effect, and it's where plants grow very slowly because their day lengths are getting really short. And that's okay. You can remedy this if you want by using a grow light, and a grow light will help these plants grow a lot quicker. I'm not doing it in our greenhouse because we just don't really have the setup for it. I have in past years. My garden is already totally chocked full of plants. Every single inch is planted right now. So I'm okay if these take a little bit longer to grow because once those are finished, I will stick these in place of them once they're a lot bigger. But it's just important to know if you're looking at your seedlings and they're leggy or they're really just not doing much, you should ask yourself first and foremost, how many hours of sunlight is that plant getting? That's going to play a big part in whether or not they're happy. The other important part of seed starting, besides the very basic, how do you seed start, how do you get them growing, is doing your backyard breeding or selection right from the get-go. Now, what does that mean? That means that I'm going to plant out the happiest and the healthiest of my tray. If I have a tray of 50, I may not actually plant all 50 of those plants. I may only plant the best 40. And what I might actually do is go through and cull some of the varieties or some of the seedlings that haven't done very well. I'll give you an example right here. These guys popped up a week ago. They're totally happy and they're way bigger. This guy just popped up and look, it's already showing signs of distress. I don't want this guy. It's never going to do very well. It didn't show a lot of seedling vigor. It didn't pop up quickly. So out it goes. I want the best of the best to go into my garden right off the bat. And I'm doing that selecting from the greenhouse phase right away. Okay, so what does it mean to cull weak seedlings? Well, let's think about how a seedling actually grows. If you watched our first video, you'll know that a seed has a window of viability. So it is viable for a certain period of time. And inside that tiny little seed is all the energy that it needs to do one thing and one thing only: pop through the soil, okay? That's why it's very important that you use really good seed starting mix. And I'll get to that and what we use here on our greenhouse in a minute. But so the seed only has enough energy to pop through the soil. And once it pops through, the first set of leaves called the cotyledons actually are there to break through the soil. And once you get your first set of true leaves, which is these guys right here, they start photosynthesizing. So you can tell on these lettuces, every single first set of leaves look the same. You can see, right? Those are the cotyledons. Then you have the leaves that actually look like the crop, which is called your first true set of leaves. These are the ones that photosynthesize and are so important that they get as much sunlight as possible during the appropriate growing season so that they can grow as quickly as possible. Now let's talk a little bit about seed starting mix because I brought that up. So here's an example of one of the products that we use. And now I'm not here to tell you which product to use and not use, but I do want to tell you the qualities of a good seed starting mix and what that looks like. So no matter what you use, your seed starting mix should be very light and fluffy. And that is because you do not want anything to prevent the seedling from easily and quickly popping up through the soil. Now, all good seed starting mix is going to have peat moss. They're going to have perlite or vermiculite, or they could have coconut coir as well. But basically, the peat moss or the coconut coir is the light, fluffy material. Perlite or vermiculite is for aeration, to let air in so the seedlings don't drown. And a good quality seed starting mix will likely have a pH adjuster because peat moss is naturally very acidic. Now, in all of my seed starting education that we've done, all the videos, all the classes, I always tell people, just buy really good seed starting mix. Yes, you can mix your own, but you'll never be able to mix it to the quality that you can just buy a bag like this. This will last me for a really long time. And I know that by using this good seed starting mix, my seedlings will pop up quickly and easily. And those that don't, I know they're either too old, they don't have great genetics, so they get cold, they're not going into my garden. So that is how we start out in the greenhouse, by selecting strong, resilient plants to plant in the garden. Okay, let's talk about the next thing that people struggle with when they're starting their seeds and how it can affect the end outcome in your food garden. That's watering. Particularly here in Southern California, it is really easy to overwater your seedlings in the hot months of August, September, and October, and have issues with dampening off and fungal diseases. Now you'll see here we have these bottom trays. I absolutely love bottom watering our trays, and I'll tell you why. When I lift this tray up, it's actually very heavy, which is signaling to me that there is ample water in here. But if you look at the top, it looks dry. So if I were to come in here and just look at the soil as my signal on whether or not to water, I would be sorely disappointed because it's actually completely full of water. It helps me know how much moisture is in the soil and whether or not to water. Additionally, by watering at the bottom of the tray, it helps me prevent fungus and different things growing on top of the soil, which can kill my starts, which is really important. Now, obviously, this system only works if your table is level. If my table was slanted like this, then there would be water gathering on one side, so you do have to put some thought into it. But I really enjoy bottom watering, and it has just increased my efficiency in the greenhouse and allowed me to have really happy, healthy starts. Now, another important part of it is making sure that you thin your starts. So in trays like these, there's not enough room for more than one lettuce plant to be growing. In theory, if you really want to, you could, but they're gonna be stunted, they're gonna struggle. I want these to be big and healthy as quick as possible and get them into my garden. So I have choices here. I could either, with this particular one, pull one out if I want, or if you really wanna maximize what's in there, I actually love using a paring knife. A lot of my kitchen gear is actually in the garden, which my husband gets so mad about, but nice little paring knife. You can actually just kind of go in, pull this little guy out. You can see, look at all that nice little roots here. I'm gonna open it up, and I'm just going to, minimizing root disturbance, and I'm gonna stick it back in there. Easy enough. So that's one way you can do it if you want to, if you accidentally got heavy-handed on one side of the tray and you want to spread it out through the tray, you can do that. But regardless of whether or not you thin or transplant into a different cell, You really only want one seedling per cell on this particular size of trays, because I want them to have as much soil as possible and as much room to grow quickly and happily and evenly. You can actually tell in the trays where there's 2, they're a lot smaller than the ones where there's 1. You can actually physically see a difference. Okay, so I've mentioned a lot of things in this video, but I want you to look at the high level, the overarching reason of why I'm talking about this. Having really good, healthy, resilient plants in the garden starts with the very seed that you plant, and using the best seed starting practices that you can to get that plant to be up quickly, healthy, strong, resilient, so that when you transplant it out into the garden, it's got its best chance of thriving. So obviously I can't go through everything in one video, but we have tons of material out there. We have teachable courses for you to check out. We have information on our website. We have other YouTube videos that you can look at that all talk about seed starting and how I have perfected it over the years and what works best for us. So make sure you check out those videos. Stay tuned, because that was just the first 2 parts. We have 2 more parts coming that is going to show you how you can get from a seed to a beautiful head of lettuce or delicious produce in your garden, and everything you need to know along the way. So make sure you stay tuned and check out those next videos.